Kevin Durant, the biggest name on the NBA's trade market, but where exactly is he going to land this summer? I think it's a fair certainty that he will not be a Phoenix Sun after the summer. So let's take a look at where he's going to go. Brett Siegel of Clutch Points had an article where he listed out some of the top destinations from what he's hearing. We're going to dig into what each landing spot would actually mean and what a deal could look like for Kevin Durant. A number of teams that we're going to look at here, including some contenders, maybe a team that wears purple and gold, all kinds of teams that we're going to look at here. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. Hopefully, Kevin Durant lands somewhere where it's not in the West, though. That's what I'll say.
Well, I can say every team on our list except for one is a West team. They're all West. They're all West teams.
These guys got to start going East, man. They all got to go East.
Go East, young man. Go East. All right, let's start with the Houston Rockets here as an interesting landing spot, particularly because they have Suns draft capital that they could potentially offer up. I think that makes them interesting here. So we'll take a peek here. The Houston Rockets as a potential landing spot for Kevin Durant. By the way, everybody, right now, about 70% of you watching this video are not subscribed. So if you're in that group, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button real quick. It's free. Click that subscribe button for us. All right, so the Houston Rockets, this team, they're already in the 2 seed in the Western Conference right now. They've been playing fantastic basketball. They've told everybody that will listen, no. They don't want to trade for a veteran. Maybe they eventually come around on a Devin Booker trade. The belief is that's why they've got so much future Suns draft capital, so they can sell the Suns their own picks back in case the Suns do want to tank. But Kevin Durant would be a really interesting fit with this Rockets team, especially if they do well this year. Let's say they make even a West Finals run, but clearly aren't on the same level as, say, OKC or whoever is sitting there in the West Finals. That may spur them to make a move now to get better in the present. And I think KD, I mean, he's a great fit anywhere, but you add him to this young core of Houston, and they could be a really dangerous team immediately.
Yeah, I would love to add him to this team. Aside from what I was saying earlier anyway, but just conceptually, I think he would fit pretty great here. I think that this team, KD's fun because he's somebody that I think his skill set would fit mostly anywhere. And I think that this team would benefit in the half court, adding KD to their offense, and they'd be much more deadly there. So that would be a really good pickup for them. The question is just, who are they getting rid of? It's probably got to do something with Van Vliet in a smaller deal, maybe.
Sure, it could be. Now, Fred VanVleet's up for an extension this summer. Rumors are that he probably does extend with the Houston Rockets, so we'll see what exactly that might look like. That could certainly, they do have that team option. That could certainly sway things in this. Maybe he'd be an interesting piece. Kevin Durant, we should look ahead to next year's salary for Kevin Durant. So when we're talking about KD, we're looking at a $54 million salary. Remember, the Phoenix Suns are restricted in that they cannot take back more money than they sent out in a trade. And right now, because even next season, the way the numbers stack up, look at this, tier 2 apron team, 11.4 million above that second tier apron. That means they also can't aggregate anyone with KD. So you can't send out like KD and Bradley Beal, which, by the way, if the Suns somehow talk Bradley Beal into waiving his no trade clause, this may undo the whole Kevin Durant situation. I don't know for sure, but I'm sure the Suns would prefer to move Bradley Beal over KD. They'll move KD though if they feel like they have to. They almost traded him to the Warriors, but apparently he does not want to go back there and deal with that.
He also didn't want to get traded midseason too, to be fair. But yeah, so like the thing with this, we did a whole video talking about the Rockets specifically because they're interesting because they do have the Suns capital. So they could say, hey, if you want to just quickly do a rebuild, then let's do it. But that was also under the premise of them trading Booker here, I believe, is what the context of that video was. But KD, Booker, whichever one you're sending out, I think if you're the Rockets, or excuse me, the Suns, you're probably looking to retool pretty quickly. So hopefully you can get back the assets you need. But dealing with the Suns is tricky because of that apron stuff. So it probably is going to wind up being a very big deal.
The Suns, what do they want? Do they want future draft capital? Do they want win now pieces? Do they want a mix? What are they trying to get? But the bottom line, the Rockets, they have the salaries. If you want to get into like a Jalen Green would obviously be a very talented player. Reed Shepherd. I don't know what the Rockets are willing to pay. They've got some real young talent on this team, though. Maybe even just go Dylan Brooks and say, well, KD is going to play on the wing anyway. And that's $21 million, and he'd fit nicely next to Devin Booker in Phoenix, so maybe there'd be some appeal there. But the big thing is they have the Suns' future draft capital. All right, let's take a look at the Dallas Mavericks, a team that has been characterized as one that's desperate to win right now. And Donnie, given their injury situation, Kyrie Irving just had ACL surgery. There's going to be pressure on Dallas to make a move because they need to prove that the Luka trade was the right decision because they actually can win. That was the whole point of the Luka. Well, not according to owner Patrick Dumont, who said the most nonsensical things ever, but according to Nico Harrison, it's a win now move. They're trying to win in the next 3 years. They're not going to have Kyrie for at least the majority of next season. So adding Kevin Durant to the Dallas Mavericks would be really interesting. They do have that Lakers pick that they picked up in the Luka trade, the 2029 pick. Plus, you've got salary. I mean, Daniel Gafford, that's an interesting player. PJ Washington, but you also have a couple of guys, Najee Marshall, who's played phenomenally for them. Max Christie's a young guard, and I'll tell you another guy that I really like that they could add into a deal for the Mavs. It's Jaden Hardy, super cost-controlled deal here, and I think he's been a pretty good reserve guard for them. So I think there's some interesting pieces here for Phoenix, and plenty of motivation from the Dallas side to try to add win now firepower and make a real run.
Yeah, no, that would probably be an interesting decision to make if you're the Mavericks. And I wonder about the health of a team with AD, Kyrie, and KD.
KD.
That's not just like the age, the window, all that stuff, sure, but just that you're towing the line with that team.
But aren't they doing that already? Like, aren't they already doing that? You've got AD,
you're just compounding
Kyrie.
the issue, though, right? Like,
well, did we just go all in? Just roll the dice, right? Because if, and maybe it's a long shot, but if you have Kyrie, AD, and KD in a playoff series, my God, that's tough to beat. That's really good.
Amazing. They seem like they would just, in my head, they seem like they would be a perfect fit together. Like it just would be so awesome to see. And you have a couple 3-and-D guys around them. Oh my God, that would be hell to try to guard. So like I can see the vision. Right. But like, it's just, they're older. Like, KD will be 37, I believe, next year. It's gonna, oh man, I don't know.
I mean, they're already rolling the dice. Why not roll it one more time and see what happens? But again, in terms of stacking up salaries, if I'm Phoenix, I want Max Christie in the deal. I want Jaden Hardy potentially in the deal if I can get them. Again, though, the Suns can't aggregate salaries in a trade, so maybe that matters. Obviously, Kyrie, AD, they're not on the way out. You'd probably want to keep Clay if you can, or as many of these pieces as you can. But if you stack up PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Caleb Martin, then you're right in the ballpark. Now, again, this is an off-season move because the Suns are going to need a lot of open roster spots in order to do something like this. But there's enough salaries here to where you can stack them up and maybe get to something workable for Phoenix.
Yeah, but I just also question, and it'll be the best fitting one we've seen in this new CBA, but the 3-star build, I also question that piece of it too. And then the ramifications that it'll have on your roster construction. You're going to be signing a lot of vet minimum guys to fill out your roster after you stack all these guys up and put them in a piece or in the trade for KD. So I wonder about that too, but you're banking on the star talent to kind of carry you over. So it would be interesting.
Those three fit so much better than the Suns' big three.
Yeah, that's why I said that's the best one we've seen. Like I don't have any questions about the fit. With the Suns, it's extremely redundant.
Okay, let's get to the Lakers. They're always in the mix whenever there's they're big star. Now, to be fair, Brett Siegel did not list the Lakers in his article, but well, we couldn't resist throwing them in here.
Because you're a homer, Trev. You're showing your true colors.
That's it. I guess that's it. Now, there was a rumor from yesterday about Kevin Durant taking less, or LeBron James taking less potentially, in order to free up maybe a mid-level exception for the Lakers. Obviously, that's not enough money to go get Kevin Durant, and he's not a free agent anyway. But if we want to talk about stacking up salaries to make something work, let's remember the Lakers. They are not a second-tier apron team for next season. 16 million right now under the books. They do have some money under the first apron. Again, if they take back more money than they send out in a trade, well, they would trigger that hard cap at the first apron. But again, that's not the worst thing ever because you just turn it into a 3-team trade and then you can fix that, just like they did with the Luka trade. Yeah. So that's where you're talking about stacking up Rui Hachimura. Does Dorian Finney-Smith pick up his player option? Do you then put him into the deal? But here's the thing: if I'm the Suns, I want Austin Reeves.
Yeah, I was going to say that. If I'm Phoenix, and I would have questions about a Reeves Booker backcourt.
Sure.
But if I'm Phoenix, I'm asking for Reeves.
And talent wise, You could talk about the Reeves Booker backcourt, but I would think that the Suns would be able to flip Austin at some if they just thought, value wise, this is what we need to be in the deal. Maybe he's not the right piece, but they could turn him into something else. But sure, this would be Rui, Austin. There you go. You're at 30-ish million right there. Toss in an expiring contract, 2 expiring contracts in Maxi Kleber and Gabe Vincent, and you're essentially you're there for the deal. So I don't think it's likely. I know the Lakers really like Austin Reeves. I can't say they would even move him for Kevin Durant, a 37-year-old KD. I think they see him as part of the future. But again, just like with the Mavs, and you have to at least pause for a moment and think, LeBron, Luka, and KD on the same team. Could that be amazing? Right?
Yeah. Well, the thing with Austin is I don't know if people like outside of the Lakers fan base know how well he's performing.
Sure.
Austin is like legitimately putting up like first option numbers for us lately. It's like 25, 5, and 6 or something like that. Like he's been amazing. Now it's not always led to wins, and he's not out there like for the most part like trying to just like get all his points at the end of the game or anything like that. But I think the point is with Austin is that he's producing like that, and he's on this salary. I mean, he's going to be making 3 times as much. His next deal,
well,
right?
But that's actually the downside now.
That's my
point. He's going to be going
like,
into the final year of his deal.
If a team trading for Austin, they're like, okay, well, we've got to give this guy 40 million or whatever it's going to be, like, I don't know. Like how much value does he have at that point?
He is averaging 24, 5, and 5 for the month of March.
Yeah. Austin been awesome, man. Like he's been so good. And then there are those times where it's just Austin and one of the other 2 stars, and he's putting up like 30 points
when in that scenario, which maybe, hopefully the Lakers don't wind up in Suns territory where the 3 of them together aren't as productive as 2 of them and then role players around them. But that's obviously a bigger topic for another day. Let's jump over to, this should be terrifying, the San Antonio Spurs. They already got De'Aaron Fox. They already got Victor Wembanyama. He doesn't fit the timeline for the Spurs, but if the Spurs just say, F it, we've got enough talent. We could go win right now if we wanted to, and this would make Wemby happy. Maybe let's just do it. You've got Devin Vassell, a young player. Again, he's a 2 guard, but there's a lot of talent there. You've got Keldon Johnson. You've got an expiring. Look at the expiring Harrison Barnes and Devin Vassell, and you're just about right there. And you're just about right there. They've got plenty of draft capital. I'm sure the Suns would ask for Stephon Castle. I wouldn't want to give him up if I'm the Spurs, but you still have the salaries to get it done. Devin Vassell is only 24 years old. You've got draft capital to add into the deal. I think this would make, and maybe potentially your pick this year, maybe there's something that's interesting there for Phoenix.
You know what? I'm going to obviously put my bias aside, as we typically like to try to do on this channel. It's a no-brainer that KD would fit awesome here. Like I said in the beginning, I think KD could largely go anywhere and fit great. So it's not rocket science to say that, if you put him here, they would be much better. And you question if he's on the timeline. What my thought is on that is that the timeline is whatever the hell Wemby's timeline is.
Sure.
And the reality is with Wemby is that he's developed at a rate that far exceeds the other young guys on this roster. He's ready to win now. Like Wemby is good enough to win now. You don't need to hold Wemby back for another couple of years, try to build this young core, setting aside the fact that De'Aaron will be about 30 in a few years, right? Like he's like 27 right now. Like the timeline is right now if you're San Antonio. And if I'm building a team, if I'm not sacrificing like too much long-term, like I wouldn't want to give up Castle. I wouldn't be opposed to putting KD on this team. The ages are all over the place, but Wemby is so good that, assuming he's healthy, of course, which we're expecting him to be, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like a top 3 player next year. Like he's going to be awesome.
It's similar to the problem the Mavs had with Luka, where Luka, most times you get a star level player in the draft, right? And it takes them a couple of years to really get their legs under them and figure it out in the NBA and all that. And by the time they're ready to win, okay, you've already accumulated a couple more draft picks after that to add, and then off you go, right? And we look at like OKC with doing that. But with Dallas, with Luka, he was ready to win immediately. And so
Yeah.
that put pressure on them and didn't give them that year or two of still being bad where they were able to accumulate more high level draft picks. The same thing's probably going to happen here with the Spurs unless they get some lottery luck this year, which, my God, do not send Cooper Flag to the Spurs.
If they get him, there's no reason to get KD, in my opinion.
No. If they get Cooper Flag, they take Cooper Flag and they
get a
thank
top
the basketball
pick,
gods and they kill it.
I don't know if they get a top 5 pick, if there's a reason to try to get KD and force
No.
it. Like I don't think they should force it. It's just weird because I feel like you're at this point, if you're just trying to do rebuilding teams or like, these marginal fringe contending teams, with Wemby there, I think you're doing him a disservice. I think you're wasting years personally because he's just so good.
Part of this has to be, look, Wemby, let's face it, he is a steal at 12 million this season. He's a steal at 13 million. He's a steal at 60 million. They'll do an extension this next summer, though. But just like when you have a rookie QB in the NFL that hits, we talk about like a CJ Stroud or someone like that, part of it is, hey, let's go in now before the guy gets paid, right? He's still on a rookie contract now. Let's go in now while we've got the advantage of him still being on a rookie contract. Let's go get Stephon Diggs, whoever obviously didn't work out for Houston, but let's go get this done. And maybe the Spurs can take a similar approach with Wemby, say, hey, we've got the advantage of right now a top-tier superstar making $13 million next season. Most teams don't have that kind of advantage. Let's use the flexibility that opens up to give them a real shot to win right now.
Yeah, I think that's the best possible thing for them to do. So honestly, I'm sure I'm not the only one that thought of this, especially after executing that De'Aaron Fox trade.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if they probably are thinking on a similar wavelength.
Okay, the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that we know had discussions with the Suns about a Kevin Durant trade. This is a team that would be very interested in bringing in KD. They also have a young star in Anthony Edwards. They feel like they're ready to win right now. I think the interesting thing here is for the Wolves, they kind of need to shed some salary. They're in a tricky spot as far as all that goes right now. You look at the first apron, they're $925,000 below that, $12.8 thousand below the second tier apron. But remember, Naz Reid, who they love, is going to opt out of this $15 million contract. He's going to want to raise, so that's going to complicate some things. So maybe a little bit tough because the Wolves probably want to save money, but you're not going to do that in a deal for Kevin Durant, not likely anyway. That'll be interesting to see, but they do have salaries they could stack up. Julius Randle, let's assume he picks up his player option, $31 million. There you go. That's a good chunk of the way right there. Jaden McDaniels, I know they don't want to move him, but McDaniels and Randle, done. That's it. That's all the salary you need to stack up. Is that enough for the Suns? I don't know, but there does seem to be motivation on the Minnesota side. They would probably try to keep one of McDaniels or Randle in the deal, though, most likely McDaniels. So then you're talking about, do you stack up a $10 million expiring Mike Conley? Is it Dante DiVincenzo? Is it someone like that? And then how do you proceed forward from there? But interesting, and just a quick aside on the free agent market, given how tight things are in Minnesota, Nickeil Alexander-Walker may be more available than you would think, because I think the Wolves are going to have to make some tough decisions when it comes to trying to retain both Naz Reid and NAW.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting for them. They have a really tough decision to make. I'd assume that Randle is a given. I think they're going to give up Randle if possible. What kind of contract is Randle going to get a couple years from now? Like, I don't
know. I mean, if I'm Randle, there's not money out there in free agency right now. He's 30 years old. Next year he'll be 31. I mean, he could wind up being like a sign and trade type guy that winds up getting 20 million a season or something like I don't think anybody's going to, I don't think there's, if there is, he should sign it. I don't think there's a 3-year, 90 million offer out there for Randle right now.
Well, that actually may matter to whatever team would pick him up, assuming that it's a bigger deal. Maybe he goes elsewhere. He's routed elsewhere. But for Phoenix, I'd be interested in Randle at a lower number. I think he'd be a nice piece to plug in.
Sure.
And he's on the Devin Booker timeline as well. I think you can maybe build something around those two and stay really competitive. But yeah, I think adding KD here, who's Ant's favorite player, I'm sure Ant is going to be pushing for this hard. That's his favorite player growing up. So, and I'm sure he loved playing with him in Team USA as well. So I think that's something that they would try to seek out. But I do still kind of have similar concerns about this team just in general. I do wonder if Not so much about the fit, but I just wonder how this team will look come the playoffs. Are they going to go down with KD at center, things like that? Nas, is he going to be the center there? Are you going to, what are you
Yeah.
going to do? Like in terms of like when you were trying to put this all together, I do wonder about that. But it's a similar question I have with Randall and this team's playoff viability as well. And on Conley, I think they're probably going to look to get off him. They've got Rob in the wings. They traded for DiVincenzo to also be the backcourt mate for Ant. I'd assume Conley is probably done in a deal.
Then Conley's, he's an expiring contract, but he's a good veteran voice, at least in the locker
For
room.
sure.
But let's say a starting five next year of the Wolves. Insert point guard X. Maybe it's Rob Dillingham. We don't know. But then you go Edwards, KD, Nas, Gobert. That's pretty attractive. New ownership group coming in. You've got a pretty good mix there of both scoring, defense, especially Gobert helps to clean things up at the rim.
You got a really big front line.
Really big front line too. KD might want to list himself at 6'11". The dude's 7 foot.
Nah, he's 7 foot.
The dude's 7 foot. That's a big front line there. So interesting. Maybe not quite as mobile of a defensive unit as we've seen from some of the Wolves teams of the past, but my God, you've got multiple guys there that can score the ball, that have tons of talent. So that's an interesting option there. Let's jump over the only East team. The Atlanta Hawks came up on this. And by the way, I think there will be more teams interested in Kevin Durant. More teams will. He's Kevin Durant. There's more teams that are going to register interest. But the Hawks were reported by Siegel as a team that did call on Kevin Durant. Now, the problem is they wanted to use Clint Capella's $22 million expiring as part of the deal. They no longer have that to use this summer. Karis LeVert, his deal expires as well. So now stacking up salaries gets tricky, especially because Trae Young's making $45 million. But and you're not going to put him in the deal. But the one good thing is we look at the amount of room that they've got. They are well below the first apron and well below the second apron again, obviously. So
what are they even doing for next year? I'm like really curious about what they're trying to do.
The Hawks?
Yeah, look at their books for next year. It's I don't know what they're doing. They've got like a lot of flexibility, it looks like.
They've got
these guys they should have traded. They traded for LeVert to get flexibility.
I think they're hoping that Zach Risachet is able to get going. He's a number one overall pick.
Number one pick, I hope.
Yeah, and then you've got to get healthy. Like Jalen Johnson, obviously his big deal kicks in next year, and he's been injured. So that's that's a big piece of their salaries for next season. Jalen Johnson, get him back, but you get Risachet, Jalen Johnson, Trae Young, Onyeka Okongwu. That's kind of your core that you're building around. And then, of course, Dyson Daniels. And you're rolling from there. And that's not a bad place to be starting from. Yeah. I know the Hawks got mentioned, but unless they want to put Jalen Johnson into the deal, and maybe they do. Maybe they just say, hey, you know what? If we can get KD, we'll put KD and Trae together with Okongwu, with Risachet, and off we go. But Jalen Johnson would almost have to be in the deal just in order to make the math kind of feasible. And then you're talking about, is it Terrence Mann, Jalen Johnson and Terrence Mann, and then you're in the ballpark and you can try to make something work.
Yeah, that's why I was asking what they're doing next year, because I don't think they want to trade most of these guys for next year. We got the report on Trae potentially wanting out as well, and I'd assume that they would.
That seems to always be the case with Trae, doesn't it? Like he's on the verge of wanting out.
But this deadline was weird for them, where they were, doing things like trading Hunter and stuff. And so I'm sure that since they didn't really get much better, I'm sure Trae is looking at that like, what are we doing? Similarly to like Sabonis, the reports on him, I think Trae is in a similar spot. And so I assume if they're trying to pull in KD, it's to appease Trae to a degree. Kind of feels like to me they've had 1 foot in, 1 foot out in terms of committing to Trae and building this roster fully around him and investing in his team. But aside from that, I mean, we haven't talked about it, but what's the opportunity for them to potentially flip Trae elsewhere? And if that's the case, I don't think they do this, and I think KD would veto this, but what if it's Trae for KD?
Yeah, KD would just, in that scenario, and we should have mentioned this up top, but KD can
he's just gonna
dictate his landing spot by just saying, hey, I'm a free agent next summer. If you guys trade for me, I'm out. I will not stay. And that then they're not going to do it. But
I don't see
Yeah,
a way
if
for
I
them
was
to
Kevin
get him
Durant, I would not
because
want to get. I would want to play with Trae Young. I would not want to get traded for him.
yeah,
No way.
and they would if push comes to shove, I'm sure they would trade some of these guys. He's KD, but like they've spent this entire trade tenure accumulating these guys. I would have to imagine they want to hold on to these guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And KD's
Agreed.
runway is probably only a couple years. Like unless you're positive you're going to get a championship, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't think this team makes the most sense for Kevin Durant or for the Suns in a trade or for the Hawks. It doesn't. But again, they were a team that got mentioned as a potential landing spot. So we do know this is going to be the summer of the trade. There's going to be a lot of teams looking on the trade market, but Kevin Durant appears to be the biggest name out there, and I think there's going to be real interest. And it's always possible the Suns decide, you know what, Bradley Beal finally decided now that it's summertime, it's not midseason, he's willing to go. Maybe that opens up some opportunities there or something, and they keep Kevin Durant. But it seems like the way the wind is blowing, Kevin Durant will wind up somewhere else, and we'll see what the Phoenix Suns can get in return. But all of those teams are really interesting options that could wind up really taking a leap next year if they can add Kevin Durant and if he can continue playing at a high level. Donnie, what's your favorite landing spot for Kevin Durant?
Probably like I said, I put my hat down, so probably San Antonio. Like I think
that's so scary.
Nice. I also like Houston, but Dallas is so like I think Dallas could be so good if they're healthy.
Roll the dice.
I don't trust it. So San Antonio.
All right. Yeah. I'm unfortunately I'm going to say I also like that. If they get a high pick, don't shortcut it and get KD. But if they don't, maybe there's something there. But I'll tell you, my backup, it's Dallas, because you're already committed. You've already gone down this path.
Man, Dallas.
Why not go all in down the path? And at least because the only thing that saves the Mavs right now is winning a championship. That's it. That's the only thing where the Mavs can point and go, see, we did the right thing. And everybody will have to say, yep, that's it. You won a championship. You did the right thing. So if that's going to give you a shot, especially with no Kyrie for the first part of the year at least, why not? Go all in. Push those chips in. Go for it. All right, everybody, give us your thoughts in the comments down below. What's the best landing spot for Kevin Durant? Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.